Hey guys, this is Ty Simpson. You're listening to the Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Roll Tide.
The mix of salty sea air and burnt rubber. The big skies, high banks, and grandstands. The rumble in your chest. That's what we love about the Daytona 500. Honoring history and making it. At the biggest race of the year on the biggest stage of a lifetime. That's what we love about the Daytona 500. You gotta see it to believe it. Secure your experience now at Daytona500.com.
Roll Tide and welcome to this Thursday and college football playoff edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover. Great to be with you from the home office today, heading out later this afternoon to Norman, Oklahoma, getting set for Alabama against Oklahoma tomorrow in the first round of the college football playoff. But it's great to have you with us for this Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Our headlines and what's coming up on the show, always presented by our friends at RJ Young. RJ Young, the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. Let's see what's coming up on the show this afternoon. We'll take a look back, first of all, to last night at Coleman Coliseum, a great doubleheader sweep for Alabama women's and men's basketball. The women's basketball win against Tulane, and then the men's basketball win against South Florida. We'll look back at our booth cam highlights with Gray Robertson on the call for the women's game, and then Chris Stewart, Brian Pasnick on the call for the men's basketball game. Then Katie Windham will join us from Bama Central, covers all Alabama athletics, but we talk a lot about Alabama football as we get ready for tomorrow night's game in Oklahoma. Speaking of the Sooners, Toby Rowland is their radio broadcaster. He joins us for the other booth, presented by Marathon, giving us a detailed scouting report on a team we just saw a few weeks ago here in Tuscaloosa, but now the stakes are a little higher as we get ready for the college football playoff. Then we'll round out the show as we always do before a big football game with DeBoer. The head coach of the Crimson Tide will give us his final word of the night from the preview show earlier this week at Baumhauer's in Tuscaloosa. Talking football tomorrow, the first round, an on-campus, Alabama on-campus for the first time in the college football playoff. Only the second year that we've had the 12-team playoff, and Alabama just missed last year. So the Crimson Tide getting in this season. We are certainly excited for what's coming up tomorrow. 7 o'clock start time at Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium. Our radio coverage will start at 4 all across the network. This will be the 15th college football playoff game that Alabama has played in since this playoff was introduced in 2014. A lot of great wins for Alabama in that stretch. Alabama 9-5 all time in the CFP. That's now longer than what we saw before with the 4-team playoff, but certainly glad to be in. Congratulations to left tackle Caden Proctor and then Crimson Tide safety Bray Hubbard, AFCA All-Americans for this season. Caden Proctor picking up All-American honors really from every outlet and every organization that gives out an All-America honor. You can find number 74 right there, getting some great recognition for what's been a tremendous 2025 season. Looking at basketball, Alabama women's basketball remains perfect. Crimson Tide receiving votes in one poll, ranked in the top 25 in another, and for good reason. Alabama now a perfect 13-0 to start the year. Picked up an impressive victory yesterday against one of the better teams in the American Athletic Conference, the Tulane Green Wave. So now it's Alabama getting set to take on Troy. Troy will be a very good challenge, only one loss on the season. We've seen this matchup before in the women's NIT, and it's an in-state battle. Alabama against Troy coming up on Sunday at 2 o'clock inside Coleman Coliseum. Full radio coverage available for that ball game. For the men's basketball team, bounced back after losing to number 1 Arizona last Saturday in Birmingham. Great win, 104-93 over Coach Brian Hodson and the USF Bulls. Coach Hodson previously on Alabama's staff working for Nate Oates, but some really good things from Nate Oates and his basketball team last night, scoring 104 points as you had 20-plus points from LeBaron Philon Jr. and Aiden Holloway helping in that win for Alabama. That was the last non-conference game before the Christmas holiday for the Crimson Tide, but coming up, the final game before the holiday, and then we'll still have the Yale game coming up on December 29th in Tuscaloosa to close out non-con play, but it will be Alabama against Kennesaw State, and another former Alabama assistant and great player, Antoine Petway, will lead his Owls against Nate Oates' Crimson Tide in Huntsville, Alabama. That's where we'll be coming up on Sunday at 1 o'clock, our noon airtime across the network for the Crimson Tide and the Rocket City Classic against Kennesaw State. Last night, Crimson Tide basketball took center stage at Coleman Coliseum with impressive victories over Tulane in women's basketball and then men's basketball against South Florida. Here's a look back at our booth cam highlights presented by NASCAR. Gray Robertson on the call for the women's game, and then Chris Stewart, Brian Pasnick on the call for men's basketball's win.
She'll swing it. Weathers, left side, 3. That's some good old-fashioned stone-cold revenge from Weathers, and she atones for the mistake with a triple. You knew Carly was going to make one. Over to Austin, looking right back for Weathers. High post feed to Timmons. Over to Austin, open look, left wing 3, rattles home. The freshman has another, 8 points for Ace. It's 39-23 Alabama. Nothing available down low, now up top to Timmons. High post feed Weathers, out to the corner, it's Collins for 3, beautiful. That is excellent execution right out of a locker room. Who threw it away, picked off by Marshall, was trying to find Scott. Instead it's Marshall for Tulane, all the way, and Scott rejected her shot into the stands. Tamia did a great job not fouling. All ball, pure block, not even a ton of contact, and Marshall was looking for it. It's just really good on-ball defense in transition by Scott. Carly Weathers looking for room. Over to Timmons, who attacks left side. Swing, top of the key, it's Collins for 3. Diana Collins, 3 of 4 from deep. Give up top to Hannah, now high post feed to Brown, looking for a cutting Hannah. Found her, but her shot was rejected by Naomi Jones. Rim protector Naomi says absolutely not yet again. Collins has it with 7, with 6 dribbling to her left, with 5. Dribbling around the top of the arc with 3. Off a screen, kick, Scott left side at the buzzer, 3 goes. Tamia Scott. What a shot to send us to the 4th. High post to Timmons, now Collins, left corner, perfect. Largest lead of the day, it's a 25-point advantage. Coast to right side, Collins. Drive, kick, Scott, corner, Timmons, left side, 3, bottom. In honor of Chris Stewart, who's going to be up here in a moment calling the men's game with 1.8 left, but Alabama will throw it in. And yes, Tulane might have won the battle of that last possession, but Alabama won the war decisively. 81-52 your final score. The number 2 scoring defense in America reigns supreme, and the Tide starts the season 13-0 and keeps on rolling here in non-conference play.
As the ball is going to be thrown into the air at center court, the tap is controlled in the backcourt to our right by USF. Nelson up and under, blocked by Sherrill. It bounces off the backboard and then off of Aiden out of bounds. He had 8 blocks in the first half against Arizona, but we had plays like that where Bama just couldn't get possession.
I don't know that I've ever seen a player go from a guy that you would not consider a rim protector to one of the best in the country, but that's what we're seeing out of Aiden Sherrill. What a great defensive play. Philon spinning to the elbow, out to Millette, open 3, bottom. First bank, first three-pointer of the game for the Crimson Tide. Jemison for 3, bottom, rattled it in, got it to go. Now here's Philon the other way for Alabama, weaving through traffic, puts it up with the left hand and got the friendly roll. That's a beautiful move. LeBaron hesitates, gets underneath the basket, fires it outside to Millette. One more feed to Holloway. He'll get into the lane, back to Millette, spots up, 3, bottom. Great job, Aiden Holloway got in the lane. The defense converged. That's 3 times now that Houston Millette has been all alone in rhythm because of the dribble drive of teammates. Here is Philon, nice kick. Holloway, 3-ball, bottom. Boy, he is wide open and knocked it home again. Another bank first 3, and the Tide leads it by 13. And he was wide open because of the ball fake by LeBaron Philon. LeBaron flips it over to Aiden. Thought about a 3. Instead, we'll work it back to Philon. A deep 3 from dead on bottom. That combo is heating up, and a timeout's going to be called by USF. Aiden Holloway trying to drive, steps back. Deep 3, bottom. Beautiful move there. And it's 79-62. The Tide enjoying its biggest advantage of the evening. When these guards get it going, so fun to watch. Aiden Holloway in a rhythm. Beautiful step back. When he let it fly, you knew it was going down. And the Tide will shoot 1 plus the bonus. Again, we don't have much time moving off the clock. Brian's not happy, and I'm not surprised. That Brian's not happy. This Brian's pretty happy. You're right. Sorry. The Brian you and I are watching on the monitor is not at all happy with Jeb Hartness, the official.
Coach's appeal is unsuccessful.
That gives Brian more time to mumble a thing or two to him as he comes by.
And Brian Hodgson is one of those coaches that if you ever get a chance to sit behind the bench that he's coaching, he gets on the officials. He's also hilarious.
No question. Free throw good by Holloway. Yeah, when he came in the first year after he left as a coach at Arkansas State, players were making shots in front of him and laughing hysterically as they're going to the other end because of stuff he was saying. Phylon front court goes to the rack, lays it up and in for two, and there's the century mark for Alabama. Holloway giving it off. Bowen for three. Now it's done. 34 seconds to go. Another bank first three-pointer, and the Tide leads at 104-91. LeBaron Phylon will watch the final seconds tick off, and the Tide gets the victory, dropping USF to 6-5 on the year, while the Tide improves to now 8-3.
This isn't just a race, it's the race. 500 miles of glory, a million memories, one place. That's what we love about the Daytona 500. You gotta see it to believe it. Secure your experience now at Daytona500.com.
Appreciate our video producer, Ethan Carabin, producing those live streams last night, and of course, putting together those highlights as he also produces this show, Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Now we turn our attention to football. Alabama in the first round of the college football playoff against the Oklahoma Sooners, and it's a perfect time to catch up with Katie Windham of Bama Central, who's been covering this Crimson Tide team all throughout the season, also covers basketball, women's sports at the Capstone as well. So she gives us a perspective on what we can expect for Alabama getting set for the trip to Norman. Katie, it is great to see you. And first of all, happy birthday here on December 18th. How's everything going as we get ready for what's a very special week for Alabama athletics?
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's going good. It's always a crazy time of year having a December birthday right before Christmas, but it makes it even more fun too.
So Alabama's in the first round of the college football playoff. In your coverage of the Crimson Tide over the past couple weeks, how have you seen Kalen DeBoer and this group really try and hit the reset button after that disappointing loss in Atlanta?
Yeah, I kind of joked with some people in the media room. I think it was on Tuesday. We were talking before this with the schedule this week. It's hard to know what day it was, but whatever day it was that we talked to the coordinators, they both seemed in like a really good mood. Like we're really kind of joking light with the media that I don't know. It does seem like they've been able to reset. Obviously, a big point has been the health. Some guys that have been dealing with injuries that needed time to just rest and be off their feet for a couple of days that you just can't do in the middle of the grind of an SEC schedule when you're fighting for a playoff spot. You can't really sit out. I think we saw that against Eastern Illinois. Maybe some guys sit out and try and rest that game, but then you're right back in it with Iron Bowl. You're right back in it with the SEC title, and they can't rest. So they've been able to get a little bit of rest, even though Alabama has like the shortest break of any playoff team, just with playing in the conference championship weekend and then playing on Friday. But and then I think there also has been a mental reset because it was obviously not the strongest finish to the season. You're coming off probably your worst performance of the season and weren't necessarily playing your best before that. But I think this team has shown us at times this year that they can beat and compete with anyone in the country. And so I think having that mental and physical reset is going to be good for them.
Obviously, the Crimson Tide getting healthier really helps things, but what else do you feel like can contribute to this offense, maybe getting back to the rhythm or on track that we saw early in the season when Alabama was on a roll?
Yeah, I think having some cohesiveness along the offensive line, and then I think getting Jay Miller back is obviously a big deal, which I think he would probably say he hasn't had the season he wanted this year, and part of that's been because of injuries. But really, if you look at Alabama's numbers last time when they played Oklahoma, they actually did run the ball pretty well, and that's been one of their biggest struggles this season is running the ball and creating balance in the offense. So I think if that's something that they're able to do, and I'm not even talking about like a 200-yard running performance or even 150, but just to be able to create a little bit of balance so there's not as much pressure on Ty Simpson, especially in a road environment, especially against one of the best defensive fronts in the country. I mean, Oklahoma leads the country in sacks and tackles for loss, I think. And so they put a lot of pressure on you. So if you're able to run the ball, create a little bit of balance, I think that'll be really big for this offense.
What were some of the talking points on the defensive side of the ball, especially from Coach Womack earlier this week?
It definitely seems like the biggest thing they're emphasizing is turnovers, but he corrected me. It's not turnovers, it's takeaways, because takeaway implies that they took the ball away. Turnover implies it could have just been given to them. However it happens, they want to get some turnovers this week. In the last matchup with Oklahoma, they lost the turnover battle 3-0. And Coach Womack said this week that they cannot walk out of there again -3 in the turnover battle. I think if that happens again, obviously they're probably going to lose. And this team, really under Womack's, with his swarm D philosophy, has been pretty good both seasons at turning the opposition over. Both times they haven't this year, they've lost against Oklahoma and then in the SEC title game against Georgia. So I think that's the big thing for them. He said, they've been practicing it a ton. He thinks they're more ready than they've ever been to create turnovers. They're looking for that. He said there's kind of a different mentality in just going and trying to tackle the ball carrier and get him to the ground and trying to get the ball away from him. So I think we're going to see a really big emphasis on that, or we have seen that. And then, John Mateer is a guy that's susceptible to it. He has 10 interceptions this season. Alabama was not able to turn him over the first time, but he's a guy that kind of, when he gets flustered, can make mistakes. And I think this defense has the ability to definitely do that this weekend.
Alabama just lost in a rematch setting against Georgia, a team they previously defeated earlier this year in Athens. And now it's kind of the reverse, getting ready for Oklahoma, a team that defeated Alabama in November in Tuscaloosa. Has there been much talk of revenge or anything like that as serving as added motivation for this playoff game?
I feel like the players haven't really talked about that a ton. I'm sure there is that factor in mind, as well as the fact that they lost in the same venue last year. And there's a lot of players that are on the team that played in that game and experienced that killed their playoff chances last year by losing at Oklahoma. So they haven't really talked about it a ton. I'm sure it is a little bit of a motivation. And I think kind of a difference from the Georgia rematch is that first Georgia game was, 1 month into the season. So there was a huge gap between games. This previous Oklahoma matchup was just a month ago. So it's not like there's a ton different with these teams besides maybe some of the players that are available or unavailable because of health. There's the whole season of film to watch on both, and they just faced each other. So I think, and really you look at that previous matchup, I think if you look at any of these 5 plays, 3 turnovers, the punt return, and the missed field goal, I think if any one of those 5 goes differently, Alabama wins the game. And, you can't do ifs, ands, and buts and hypotheticals. They did lose, but I think they played well in that previous matchup. It's not like, oh, we just got killed by Oklahoma, we got to figure out how to fix it. It's like, no, they really just need to keep doing the things they did and probably win the turnover battle. And I think they're going to be in good shape.
So it's Alabama against Oklahoma coming up on Friday. That, of course, has been the focus of your coverage, but you've also had to look at Alabama's head coach, DeBoer, and a lot of the outside noise with the Michigan job opening. How have you seen him try to address it, both with the statement and in the press conference this week?
Yeah, it was kind of the timing of when we talked to him and then when all that came out, because I think we had an initial Zoom with him on Sunday, like when Alabama got in the playoff. And then I don't know if maybe we talked to him on Thursday. I don't know. There was a gap. We talked to the players on Friday, and we weren't going to talk to Kalen again until Monday, and kind of when the news broke with Michigan having the opening. And I think it's a sign of respect and a good thing for Alabama fans that Kalen's name is being tied to these huge job openings, that he is one of the best coaches in college football that's coveted by other programs. And so he released the statement to kind of get out ahead of it before he talked to the media in person. And then he was asked directly on Monday, didn't necessarily answer directly. So he was asked with a follow-up, will you be the coach next year? And he said yes. So I think he does want to be at Alabama. And then he does, want to also be locked in and focus on the playoff and not worried about kind of his name being tied to other jobs.
It's been a very busy week for the Alabama media with all these press conferences in Tuscaloosa and on Zoom, like you mentioned. But one really cool moment we got to see was Charlie Potter serving as the spokesman for the media, giving out the Good Guy Award from the media to Deontay Lawson for everything he has meant in the coverage that you all have had this year. Just what went into Deontay being selected, and obviously that was a really cool honor when he was, and he seemed very appreciative when he heard that from Charlie.
Yeah, for sure. I would say Deontay was probably the media good guy. And then also, if we gave out a most improved, he would probably be that as well. Because, he's an older guy, obviously a captain, a redshirt senior. He's been around. But some guys have the personality that they're always like a Terrion Arnold. Like he loves to be in front of the media, loves to be talking. Some guys are like kind of nervous even when we're in scrum style and can, mumble or not know what to say or be worried they're going to say the wrong thing. And I feel like that was maybe Deontay at one point. And then this season, I feel like he's just been super thoughtful with his answers, especially after losses. That's never an easy position to be in, is to have to come speak to the media after the team loses or doesn't perform well. And a lot of times the captains are called on to come do that after they do lose. And so, he just gives, a lot of guys can give canned answers, which that's kind of what they're trained to do. We understand that, or can kind of be flippant with what they say, but you could tell a lot of times he was giving thoughtful answers. And we obviously appreciate that in the media when they're taking time to give us to actually answer what we asked instead of just ignoring it, brushing it off, or saying something quick. And then he, would give good insight too on Alabama and the opponent when we would ask questions like that as well.
That was really great to see. It's all been part of a really busy week for the media covering Alabama basketball as well. You were in Birmingham for the game against Arizona. Maybe not the best second half for the Crimson Tide, but a good response last night against South Florida. Just your thoughts on this basketball team as we get close to the end of non-conference play.
Yeah, they're another team that's had to deal with the health a lot. And, I asked Nate about that before Arizona. And kind of how that can benefit this team is that it's given a lot of the freshmen playing time and experience that they probably wouldn't have gotten if everyone's healthy, which I think will be important as they enter SEC play and then especially down the stretch and get into postseason. But they're kind of like football in that they've shown that they can compete with and beat some of the best teams in the country, but they also have to, Nate's biggest thing for sure right now is the rebounding and the effort. And so I think the good thing about that is that that's something that's fixable. You can just, decide to give more effort, get better on the glass. It's not like it's a talent issue. And so I think once again, NATO's put together a good roster that's going to make some noise in SEC play.
And of course, you also cover Alabama women's basketball as part of your Crimson Flame podcast, so we'll talk about in a moment. But Christy Curry and the Crimson Tide now a perfect 13-0, and if they get a win on Sunday against Troy, that means a perfect start to the year heading into SEC play.
I know they just keep rolling, and then I think based on the name or conference of the opponent with Troy on Sunday, you might not think that that's, or people might not think that that's the best quality, but Troy is a really quality mid-major. They're I think 12-1 on the season or something like or 10-1 maybe. They've only lost once and have looked really good this year. So it's a big game, a big opportunity to kind of continue that win streak and be in a really good position heading into SEC play where they've given themselves a little more margin for error maybe in the conference to get some good seeding for the NCAA tournament and kind of continue what they've done the last couple of years and build on those NCAA tournament trips.
Since the last time we talked to you, you've launched a podcast, as I mentioned, Crimson Flame, focusing on Crimson Tide women's athletics. What have you enjoyed about the podcast this fall and also kind of carving out a unique space focused on women's athletics here at Alabama?
Yeah, it's been really fun to get to tell some stories of people that maybe didn't get to while they were here or that don't while they're here. I've gotten to talk to some current athletes, current coaches, some former athletes. And so, yeah, I obviously cover women's sports. Grew up watching them and supporting them, so it's just kind of fun to tell those stories and hear from former athletes kind of how their journey of how they got to Alabama, because I think it's something that people don't necessarily understand. They know a ton about football recruiting and probably a little bit about basketball recruiting, but maybe don't realize that, which the rules have changed, but that a gymnast started getting recruited in 7th grade and that they trained, 30 hours a week as a middle schooler, and just to be a gymnast at Alabama, at a place like Alabama, and to compete for SEC and national titles. So, and it's not just gymnastics; it's all the sports. And hopefully, by the end of the athletic calendar, I'll have had somebody on from every sport or kind of a touch point with every women's sport, because Alabama does have really talented athletes and really good teams all across the spectrum. You see in cross country, Doris Lemon-Golay winning national titles, and pretty much whatever event she does, she's going to win. So you have a strong cross country program. Obviously, softball and gymnastics are nationally known. Then you have, golf has won national titles. You have individuals in sports like swimming and track and tennis, doubles that have won national titles. So there's a lot of good stories out there and really talented athletes that maybe don't get as much coverage. But I also know there's some women's sports like softball that, has 200,000 followers on Twitter alone and that has a huge fan base that people care about a lot. And so maybe just kind of helping bring people along to some of the other sports that they don't know as much about.
Really encourage fans to check it out. Well, Katie, safe travels with everything coming up. A busy time of the year, as we mentioned. And again, happy birthday as you get ready for Alabama against Oklahoma in the college football playoff. We look forward to seeing you down the road. Thank you again for your time on the Crimson Tide Sports Network.
Thank you, Roger.
Hi, my name is Jumpy Bernard here on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR.
This isn't just a race, it's the race. 500 miles of glory, a million memories, one place. That's what we love about the Daytona 500. You gotta see it to believe it. Secure your experience now at Daytona500.com.
Our thanks to Katie Windham. Now we visit with the broadcaster for the Oklahoma Sooners, Toby Rowland, who we just had on the show a few weeks ago for the other booth presented by Marathon. Learning about Oklahoma, now we start to learn about what's happened since that game in Tuscaloosa. What did that win mean for Brent Venables and this football team, and what have they done since then? We find out that and more as we get set for Alabama and Oklahoma with some help from Toby Rowland. How's life been since that win for the Sooners against Alabama?
It's been good. It's been stressful. I feel like Oklahoma's been in the playoffs for a month now. It's been a win or go home situation for them for a while, but it's exciting to be here. I don't know if too many Sooner fans, coaches, or players are excited to be playing Alabama again, but it's exciting to be in the playoff nonetheless.
Yeah, we look forward to being there coming up on Friday for Alabama against Oklahoma. Let's go back to that game in Tuscaloosa. Alabama fans liked a lot of what they saw that day from the Crimson Tide, but it was some turnovers and some special teams miscues that really helped Oklahoma, it seemed like, in that game. Just if you could kind of give us the Oklahoma perspective, what allowed the Sooners to get a win in Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, that was the difference. You nailed it. That's been Oklahoma's formula this year, and especially down the stretch when they've had to win these games to get in. They've leaned on their defense, and they've leaned on what has been an outstanding special teams unit. Their kicker, Tate Sandell, won the Lou Groza Award, and all around they've been very good in special teams. And the defense has done enough to help the offense out. The offense has not been great. They've been injured. They've been ineffective, but they have been productive when they've had to be. Oklahoma is the only team in the country that has scored on every trip into the red zone this year. And their kickers made 23 in a row. So if they get to the 35-yard line, they've put points on the board. So they have a hard time moving the football. But if they can get it to the 35, they feel like that's points. And if the defense can help them out with a turnover or in scoring themselves like they did in Tuscaloosa, that helps. They really need the defense to come through for them. And that's what happened that night, The defense came up with 3 turnovers. They scored themselves and were able to squeak out of there with a win.
You mentioned the offense trying to get going, had 23 points against Alabama, but in the 2 games after that, Missouri and LSU, only 17 points. So what's kind of keeping this offense from playing maybe at the level we saw earlier in the season or to their full potential?
Well, a lot of it is that they're banged up. John Mateer, give him credit. He had hand surgery this year on his throwing hand. And when we saw him the first 4 games of the year before that, he was dynamic. He was being mentioned among the front runners for the Heisman Trophy. And he's gutted it out. But he's been inaccurate, and he's had a hard time with the deeper passes since he's come back. All of that is understandable because of, what he's been through. But that's held him back. And the running backs have been banged up as well. Coming into the Alabama game, they were coming off back-to-back very good rushing games. Xavier Robinson went for over 100 yards against both Ole Miss and Tennessee. But he got hurt in the Alabama game, hasn't been the same back since, and they've had a hard time running the ball. Several of the offensive linemen have been banged up. This probably sounds a lot like what's going on in Tuscaloosa. So all of that adds up to they've had a hard time. Now, one thing they've been good at is down the stretch, they have found the explosive play, enough of them. 1 or 2 a game where Isaiah Satania or Deion Burks will take a ball and go 70, 80 yards, and that's a game winner for them. So they do have a little explosivity to them, but it's been a real struggle.
As you mentioned, both teams dealing with their injuries. Just how healthy is this Oklahoma team? Any players that are really questionable or maybe game time decisions for Friday night?
Yeah, that's one of the hopes, is that this 3 weeks of rest has helped out in that regard. Xavier Robinson, the running back who I just mentioned, we'll see. The hope is that he's, because of some rest, going to be able to be more effective. He's certainly going to play, but is that knee to the point where he can be as effective as he was before he was injured? The big one is R. Mason Thomas. R. Mason, their best pass rusher, did not play in Tuscaloosa and is expected to play. It would be a surprise, I think, if he doesn't, but is he all the way back? He was hurt on that long scoop and score touchdown against Tennessee the week before the Alabama game. He's a game changer. He's one of the best pass rushers in America. So the hope is that, he's 100%, but even if he's not, Can he be a guy that comes in on 3rd and long packages and maybe can make a difference? Those are probably the two. And John Mateer, maybe 3 more weeks removed from that hand surgery will help him out a little bit too.
Certainly looking forward to being there for the first time since last year, which didn't go too well for Alabama. A huge win for Oklahoma. But what can you tell us about the fan attitude going into this ball game and the type of environment we're walking into? I imagine it'll be pretty similar to what we saw a year ago, but this is a playoff game with so much more on the line.
Never seen anything like this. I think it's going to be an absolute zoo. A playoff game at night. We didn't get any night SEC games this year, so let's start right there. Fans are very excited about that. The weather is going to be fantastic. For mid-December, it could be bad, and it's not. We're going to have a great night, it looks like, so that's great. It's Alabama, which in and of itself is a big deal when Alabama comes to town. And then umbrella overing all of that is the fact that this is a college football playoff game, and whoever wins it heads to Pasadena. I think you add all of that up, and we're going to see an electricity in the air Friday night, maybe unlike we've ever seen, certainly in a long, long time. There's probably also going to be an underlying bubbling nervousness. This is a survive and advance situation. And so every single snap means everything. And you could probably cut the tension in the air at Owen Field Friday night with a knife.
We're looking forward to it. And for Oklahoma, Brent Venables already 2-0 against Alabama in his career. That big win last year in Norman and then earlier this season in Tuscaloosa. Just how do you continue to see this fan base really embrace him and the vision he has for this program?
They love Brent. The story of Brent goes all the way back to the early Bob Stoops days when he was here and won the national championship with them in 2000, grew up on that coaching staff, and then went off to Clemson and became a star. I mean, he was a star, but he became a superstar there at Clemson. And so it was a big deal. This is the guy that Oklahoma wanted when Lincoln Riley left. And to go get him was a big deal. It was frustrating it didn't work out the way they wanted it to the first 3 years. So it was uncomfortable, Fans were really rooting for him, but he wasn't producing at the level you're expected to produce at the University of Oklahoma. So for this season to go like it has been a sigh of relief and exciting. I think we all believe in Brent, his vision for this program, his passion, his high character, and want him to be the guy long term. And to see it all come together this year has been just tremendous.
Well, it's Alabama against Oklahoma coming up on Friday night. Toby, just thank you for the time you've given us on the Crimson Tide Sports Network, and thanks especially for that weather report. So we were all a little bit worried when we saw this announcement made that we were going to Norman for this game, but sounding like it's going to be a nice night in Norman. We look forward to it, but thank you again.
Always great to talk to you, Roger.
Hi, my name is Parker Brailsford. You're watching Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR.
Our thanks to Toby. Always appreciate his hospitality along with everyone we see in Norman, Oklahoma as we get ready for the college football playoff. What an atmosphere it's going to be for Alabama and Oklahoma on Friday night. That's what starts our look at our upcoming schedule. 4 o'clock will be the airtime for the Crimson Tide and the Oklahoma Sooners, leading up to kickoff at 7 p.m. Central. A reminder, you can listen to the game on the full radio network. The Varsity Network app as well does have streaming. We will not have a booth cam for the college football playoff with ESPN having radio rights for this ball game. So there are still ways to listen to us throughout the ball game. But again, no booth cam coming up for Alabama against Oklahoma in the college football playoff. Coming up on Sunday, we'll be busy for our final basketball games before the holiday. Men's basketball in Huntsville against Kennesaw State. Noon will be the airtime from the Von Braun Center, and women's basketball at Coleman Coliseum against Troy with the airtime at 1:45, and that will be it for women's basketball before the holiday to close out non-conference play. We won't see Christy Curry and the Crimson Tide women's team again until we go to Columbia, South Carolina on New Year's Day for Alabama against South Carolina in women's basketball. Also, that means a bit of a holiday break coming up here on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, as typically we do step aside during the Christmas week and leading up to New Year's for a 2-week break. We will have more information, especially concerning Alabama's win or loss against Oklahoma. With the win, we will have some special things coming up on social media to get you ready for a potential Rose Bowl against Indiana. But make sure you subscribe subscribe to us on all of your social media platforms at UA_CTSN for the very latest. Again, we will have some coverage over the holidays, especially if Alabama does move on in the college football playoff. But the best place to find any news regarding the Crimson Tide, the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Again, give us a follow at UA_CTSN. Well, that's going to do it for this Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Got a plane to catch. Time to get out to Oklahoma, but really appreciate the time of Katie Windham and Toby Rowland getting us ready for the ball game. Also, the booth cam highlights were fun to look back on from last night's game with Chris Stewart and Gray Robertson on the call for those ball games. And yes, Brian Pasick. But we really appreciate Ethan Carabin, our video producer, putting together all of that and putting together this show as we say goodbye for 2025 here on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Hard to believe we've had over 300 episodes of this show going back to January 2021 when we were talking about a national championship for Alabama, and maybe something similar is coming up around the corner. Kalen DeBoer is the head coach of the Crimson Tide. He joined Chris Stewart along with Nakai Hill-Green on Monday for our college football playoff preview show at Baumhauer's. And as we say goodbye on this Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, we always give the final word to the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Kalen DeBoer. So enjoy that. Enjoy the Christmas and New Year's holiday coming up. We look forward to seeing you down the road here on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR.
Coach, your opportunity now for the final word. The final word presented by McCurry Van and Car Rental.
Yeah, it's playoff time, and we've been working all season long for this moment, and a long road ahead, hopefully. But we're just focused on what's ahead this week, and really looking forward to a great challenge against a good football team. I'm proud of the guys and what they've been doing here early in the week, getting ready to play.
Coach, always appreciate the time. Nakai, great to see you. Appreciate you so much as well. Best of luck this weekend, and congratulations again on earning the opportunity to play in the college football playoff.
You bet.
Coach Kalen DeBoer, Nakai Hill-Green joining us from Baumhauer's Victory Grill.